The Texas Longhorns bounced from the college football playoffs, had some early off-season shakeups with guys declaring for the draft, guys hitting the portal, but they had some big-time pieces stay. Can this team return as a college football playoff contender with national title hopes? Looking at this Texas program, they went on the road earlier in the year, played number 3 Alabama on the road, picked up a massive win, and everybody knew that they were college football playoff contenders. They had one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Quinn Ewers. He had a massive game. They had excellent pieces on the outside in Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy, and everybody knew that if they could pretty much take care of the rest of their schedule, they'd be college football playoff contenders. Now, they did lose in the Red River rivalry against Oklahoma, but were able to take care of business against Kansas State. Oklahoma State ultimately won the Big 12 and found themselves in the college football playoffs against Washington. Now, they got themselves in a big-time deficit early on, weren't able to climb themselves out of it, and lost in the first round of the college football playoffs. Immediately after that, these two big-time pieces that they had at the wide receiver position in Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy both declared for the NFL draft, and the next big-time decision would be whether Quinn Ewers would stay or not. Now, most people in the country thought that Quinn Ewers would be a Heisman contender at the beginning of the season. He was banged up the previous year, and people were finally excited to see Quinn Ewers play a full season as a starting quarterback. Now, he had a little bit of inconsistency throughout the middle of the schedule, and so that really hurt his chances at not only winning a Heisman, but at potentially being a high draft pick. So he ultimately made the decision to come back, see what him and this offense could do with another year, even though there would be a lot of missing pieces at the wide receiver position. And then we got the news that Nick Saban retired. There were a lot of rumors that potentially Sarkisian could take the job and other big-time head coaches in college football. Sark ultimately decided that he was going to come back, and you knew that this duo of him and Quinn Ewers would have a shot at the college football playoffs next year. And how would that look with this big transition they're about to make from the Big 12 to the SEC? As I mentioned, they lost those two big wide receivers on the outside. They also lost their star tight end, Jatavion Sanders. And even though they still had their star quarterback, they needed to look in the portal to potentially get a wide receiver. Luckily for them, they got some massive pieces in the transfer portal. The first big-time player that they got in the portal was Isaiah Bond out of Alabama. He was a big impact player on this team, and I love this fit for him in Texas. And then another guy that they got in the portal who was a top 5 wide receiver transferring was Matthew Golden out of Houston. He was a big-time receiver staying in the state of Texas, and I'm super excited for this fit as well. And as I mentioned, they lost Jatavion Sanders, who was one of the best tight ends in the country. They picked up Amari Niblack out of Alabama, who is the #1 overall tight end in the portal. Now, immediately there's a ton of unknown for Texas football. They're not only moving conferences from the Big 12 to the SEC, they're losing 3 big-time playmakers on the outside. And then they're going to have to try and basically figure out how Quinn Ewers and these guys' connections going to work throughout the season. I'm really not worried about this Texas squad. I think Quinn Ewers is the best quarterback in college football coming into the season. He currently has the best odds to win the Heisman, and he's going to get an entire offseason to develop. He could potentially be a first-round draft pick if he has a good season. I think there's a lot on the line for him this year, and I think also with the playoffs expanding from 4 to 12, it gives Texas a lot more room to potentially lose some of these games against a team like Michigan or against a team like Georgia, who both of these teams they will see in the regular season. When I look at Texas' schedule, I expect them to go 10-2 on the season. I expect them to be a top team in the SEC, and I think we will see them make the college football playoffs as one of those wild card teams. If Quinn Ewers can figure it out with some of these new pieces on the offensive side of the ball and their defense can stay consistent to what we saw last year, I like Texas's shot at sneaking into the college football playoffs and being one of the best offenses in college football. I'm Caden Kubler, and that's my take.